Welcome to Mick and the Psychic, where we leave no stone unturned as we explore all things outside the apparent physical realm.
There is no intent to teach or make you believe or disbelieve anything. It is just a safe space to listen and explore with us.
So for this next episode, you have permission to open your heart and mind as you join myself and Xavier on this deep dive into the unknown.
I'm just lying in bed with this crazy lights just swirling around me and into my body, and meanwhile my mind is like, what is going on? I don't believe in beings from the 10th dimension of love. I don't believe in the lights of sacred geometry flooding my body. I don't believe in God. I'm going crazy.
Today on the show we have Wenzl McGowen. If you haven't heard of the name, for sure you've heard him blow the sax, as he's one of the founding members of Moon Hooch, tearing up the stage and dance floors across the world. As cool as that may be, as you know, this is not a dance music podcast. Well, it's at least not meant to be. So that's not the breath work in the sax that we'll be focusing on. But Wenzl is also a meditation teacher, an author, a board game developer, which is probably more dynamic than Jumanji, if I'm honest, and a group workshop facilitator. This creative soul is making meditation music and guided meditation to help the masses. But today he'll be guiding us into the world of Wenzl and mystical experiences. And he started off the show smoking Palo Santo. So welcome to the show, Wenzl.
Thanks for having me. That's an epic intro.
Told you.
Epic intro. You're the one that showed up on the podcast, you know, smoking Palo Santo. I love it. Like if you had to define a enlightened being in one image, it would be a man smoking some Palo Santo.
And I was just listening to number 9 and now it's stuck in my head. So good job. And I'm like, I know that. I've heard that. Michael said I would have, because play number 9, you would have heard it before. And I'm like, really? Okay. And I put it on. I'm like, yes, I've heard that. I don't know where. What the heck?
You know, we were in Hamish and his gap year. That's
wow.
So
yeah.
What?
We were the house band for like 2 months on the show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing. You're an Australian royalty. I feel like I'm talking to an Aussie now. If you spend any time with Hamish and Andy, you're basically Australian.
I love them.
I did watch Hamish and Andy. Okay.
Yeah, we became actually pretty good friends with them. And then they were like, because they were shooting the show in Brooklyn, and then they were like, but after the show, we'll fly you out to Australia and show you a good time.
Did they ever do that?
They would have.
Yeah, they flew us out. They flew us out, put us up in like a 5-star hotel, got us like a suite on the 10th floor.
Oh, wow.
And then they're like, go on the sidewalk and walk this way. We'll meet you on the street. Suddenly there's a Jeep on the sidewalk riding towards us, and Hamish and Andy are it's just like screaming at us.
Were they even filming that, or was that just literally them on a Saturday afternoon?
That was just them just having fun, you know? And everywhere we went, everyone knew them. And they would just treat everyone like family.
Yeah,
so it was like, it's really nice to see how some people carry their fame. Because he was like, okay, I'm just everyone is my family, and I treat everyone like my friend.
Actually.
Yeah,
we're all pretty.
It's really cool.
Awesome.
We are lucky here because you actually get away with that more in Australia. If you're a celebrity in Australia, 9 out of 10 people will look and go, "I will leave them alone," but that's awesome.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in America, 9 out of 10 will go, "This is my chance to get an autograph."
Jump in and get a selfie.
Yeah.
Annoy them.
Well, do you get that walking on the street?
Not so much. I mean, once in a while, you know. Recently, I was working out in my gym, and some guy at the gym was like, "Wait, were you just on America's Got Talent?" And I was like, "Yeah." He recognized me from that show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome. You're on America's Got Talent. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I was on the show.
To get noticed more, maybe if you just walked around with a saxophone and like a traffic cone hanging out of it, just go, "Oh yeah, how did you recognize me? Wow, yeah, this is so annoying."
Now people listening going, "What are you talking about? A traffic cone and a saxophone?" You might have to explain that one now.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I guess we were talking now about music, but let's do it for a little bit.
Yeah.
So I just want more bass on my saxophone. And at the time, I didn't have the money to buy a bass saxophone or any lower saxophone. So I just stuck a traffic cone into my saxophone, and it made the tube longer. And so it makes it lower.
Awesome.
And so I was just using that to like create some dubstep bass and just emulate electronic music.
Wow.
And in the last couple of years, it kind of became a viral sensation. Mike from Moon Hooch is doing it as well, and it's just our videos on TikTok blew up, and apparently now there's people in India playing the trafficon saxophone. And it
That
became
is so
like
cool.
international thing that everyone does now.
I love
That's
that.
kind of cool.
Doing guided meditations for people, bringing like meditation and spirituality out to the people and making it accessible. Maybe that's just an expression of what you did to the tenor saxophone.
Wait, what do you mean exactly?
Well, really, you just made it accessible for people to be able to get
Right,
a tenor and
right.
a baritone saxophone in one
Yep.
go. And you're just doing that with meditation now anyway, surely.
Yeah.
Right.
Love
It's
that.
not that long a bow. It feels like the same thing. You're an innovator and you're bringing love and creativity to the masses. I love it.
Yeah, sometimes I think of myself more like a mycelium network that just kind of grows in all directions, you know?
Wow,
Like,
love it.
because like the way I was raised and the way I grew up, my mom always gave me the attitude like you can do anything you want, and she never stopped my creativity.
That's
So
awesome.
even if that meant like being on a bus in public and being obsessed with climbing all the poles and just like doing things that kids usually wouldn't be allowed to do. And my mom would be like, go for it. If you hurt yourself, you learn from it, but just, explore your own limits.
I love that. So
And-
the parents listening will be like, okay, I'm creating a creative genius, like by letting him do the thing. Stop bagging me for my parenting.
Yeah, I think that like that's really the biggest gift that my mom gave me, was like she kind of saw me and understood my being like right off the bat. And
That-
like
Crazy.
and was like, okay, I'm just gonna let him do his thing and step out of the way and give him support when he needs it. And
So nice.
and she even defended me against other adults who were trying to like chisel down on me and try to confine me into like some sort of preconceived framework of what it means to be a kid. But my mom was always like, go for it.
As
So
long as
I
you're
think
hurting anyone.
let's say again.
As long as you're not hurting anyone, then yeah, why?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah,
go
I was hurting myself sometimes, I would be doing backflips off a piano or like stuff like that.
Yeah, she's good. I wouldn't have coped. So thinking of my kids, stop. Like, yeah, we get brought up. You're supposed to behave a certain way, and it feeds down. So that's really beautiful that she could step
Yeah.
out of the way. That's awesome. I love that.
For sure.
Do you think as an adult that the idea of playfulness as a really important part of creativity and spirituality, like does that still play a role, for people in
Yeah.
adulthood?
Totally. I think if my playfulness and my joy and excitement isn't on board, I can't push that long without me thinking, okay, that's maybe not the direction I should go. But at the same time, I do find that sometimes sometimes fear would create like an initial block, and like it doesn't feel right to sit down and write right now. And then I force myself to write for like 10 minutes. And then I'm like, oh, this is what I should be writing about. But sometimes for me, it's like it's like a very intricate balance of being like, now I push myself against resistance, or now I listen and I say, maybe this is not the direction I should be going.
So what came first? Not the chicken and the egg question, but what came first for you? Was it music or meditation? Or were they both?
Music.
Yeah.
And actually, Hamish and Annie's gap year kind of had a turning point in my life, because at that point I reached a level of fame very suddenly where my band wasn't very well known, but I was suddenly among all these famous people. And like we met Coldplay and Taylor Swift and I just, something clicked in my brain where I was like, fame will never ever fulfill me.
Right.
I had this sudden realization while when I was a kid, I was a teenager, I was always thinking, once I'll be a famous musician, I'll be happy.
Yes.
And I never really spoke that out, but I suddenly realized that my ultimate goal wasn't so ultimate. And then I actually fell into depression. And then it took me a while to get out of this depression. First, I started smoking weed. And I was very sensitive to the substance, and I started having very far out spiritual experiences that kind of suggested that maybe there's more to life.
Ah, yep.
One of them was, we were rehearsing in this empty warehouse, and someone was converting that into like rehearsal spaces, and the rehearsal space next to us was still empty. And so we went into that, we turned the light off, got really high on weed, and then started playing saxophone. And suddenly I started having visions, and I was seeing the music as a river. And that when I jumped in the river, I was in flow, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
But then there were all these rocks coming at me, and these rocks were thoughts like that were instilled to me through music school, like thoughts like, "Oh, you just played this. Why are you playing this again?" Or like, "This is such a boring phrase. Like this, everyone knows this phrase." Like just this judgmental things about the river. And I was like, "Wait, no, I'm just gonna go in the river. I don't want to deal with these rocks." So I started swimming in the river, and suddenly the music flew through me. And then the visions progressed, and I ended up in this lake where I floated up these hills, and it was like a moonlight scenery. And on top of the hills was this old monastery, and a monk was sitting there. And the monk said, "Thank you, finally you come," or like, "Welcome, you've come." And at that point I was like, "What?" And I like snapped out of it, and I was like, that was wild. And it just felt so real. And I was also never ever spiritual before. I never thought about spiritual things. So monks, those things weren't really things I was thinking about. And then a week later, a new band moved into that space and put a sticker on the door with their band name, and their band name was Old Monk.
No.
And
no.
Awesome.
yeah, so I was like, is that chance? Is there something more at work? So that kind of started making me question, like, where, like, there might be more to all of this.
We love interviewing experts from different fields about all things outside the apparent physical realm.
And the one constant is that these phenomena are transmitted through energy.
So we sought out and teamed up with Subtle Energy Science
To bring you, our listeners,
energetically encoded technology you can use on your phone, laptop, computer, or tablet.
turning your device into a powerful personal quantum energy tool.
We're not the creators, nor are we qualified enough to explain it, but there is a mind-blowing number of scientific studies available on their website.
And we get to try their range ourselves so we can give you an honest review.
So for the month of August, we've got 20% off aura clearing with promo code MATP-861.
From balancing chakras to clearing stagnant energy, this product helps you raise your vibration.
It worked great during school runs for myself and the kids after the morning rush. Plus, I'll be using with my clients to amplify my work.
Make sure you use the link in the show notes and back to the show.
And then I started going into like these trance states for 8 hours a day where I just smoke weed and play to dance music and try to go back into that space.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you do that too much with drugs, it destabilizes your system.
Yep.
In the long run. I think drugs are a great way to have an introduction, but I don't think they're a tool to permanently get you there.
Yep.
And I was then trying to permanently get there by being high all the time, and that totally backfired. I got into some altered states and had like epiphanies and had these realizations that I have the power to rewire my whole programming and that I can bend time depending on how present I am and all that stuff. But then I was kind of like, I started getting very anxious when I wasn't smoking, and old fears started coming up, and it just totally didn't work. And then I just heard this voice over and over again: stop smoking and meditate.
Yes.
And eventually I just did that. I quit all drugs, and just whenever I was anxious, I would sit down and meditate.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's great that you work like, so it helps the walls come down when just a normal person living life, and it helps you break through those barriers, and then learning exactly what you're supposed to learn from that, which is great that you can do that with meditation. You don't need drugs. Like that's
right.
A beautiful realization. Good job.
Yeah. I mean, it was a rocky path. It wasn't smooth because I also kind of had this attitude where I'm sometimes very stubborn, and I feel like I could have saved myself many pitfalls if I wasn't as stubborn and just been a little more humble about everything. But then I went to a meditation retreat and I meditated for 10 hours a day. I did the Vipassana. And then there I had the first like really reality shattering experience that kind of permanently changed me, where suddenly on the 10th, maybe 6th or 7th day, it felt like there was these two energies, one on my head and one on my heart, and they kind of went whoop and flipped. And at that moment, I suddenly, in an instant, had lost like this thinking mind. It was suddenly gone. There was no more option, and there was only this powerful current of vibrating love, and I was that eternal presence in everything. And sounds like the classic hippie jargon, but experiencing it, I just broke down crying. I saw a tree, and the tree was kind of like, yes, I've been here all this time. You were too busy thinking. You couldn't really see me. And so that kind of really had a profound impact on me. And this went then into a really crazy journey, because then my ego mind started resisting it. I was like, oh, am I gonna be able to go back to my life? Like, will I be able to function? I barely know that I'm a human being anymore. And
I can relate.
And then I started struggling with that. And then it got even crazier. Then I started kind of questioning, like, what is this? Like, is there God? Am I in touch with God? And like, am I eternal? What is this? And then suddenly I felt this hand on my third eye, or like some sort of contact that just touched me here. And I started telepathically communicating with some sort of deity. And I'm complete atheist, right? So like, I don't believe in any of this stuff while this is happening. And I'm like, what is this? Who are you? And they were like, we're beings from the 10th dimension of love. And you have been boring a lot of love. And would you be willing to turn around and pay back love? Meaning, give yourself to love. Like, devote your life to love. They were like directly asking me that. And so I said yes. And then it's just shot into my third eye and started creating all these geometric shapes, and then went into my body and into my heart. And like, before I knew it, I'm just lying in bed with this crazy lights just swirling around me and into my body. And meanwhile, my mind is like, what is going on? I don't believe in beings from the 10th dimension of love. I don't believe in lights of sacred geometry flooding my body. I don't believe in God. I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
So that's what my mind is saying.
So there was that possibility in your head. You're like, or this is all happening, or I've lost it. I'm nuts.
Yeah, exactly. And then I actually checked myself in a mental hospital.
So you did? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We have a similar story from another musician actually on our show, but other people checked her in mental hospital.
Yeah.
After she had that experience. Oh my goodness.
So what happened there?
Yeah. I love this story.
It gets really really. I don't know if I want to get into all
whatever you wish to share. Oh my goodness.
It gets very far out. I guess I'll get into it. I wrote a whole novel that's inspired by this, which is a homeless person checking themselves into the mental hospital, and it's called The End of Fear. And in this novel, this person, Greg, is the character. I exaggerated the whole story that happened to me, but long story short, when I got out of the hospital, I felt heartbroken, because I suddenly, like, these beings were like, okay, like you chose fear, you chucked yourself in the hospital, now focus on getting back on your feet. And they were also talking about like these cosmic projects that they're working on, and like some sort of rewiring of the flow of love and fear, like basically combining the opposites into a flow. And they were giving me like these huge downloads of cosmic perspectives of like what is the underlying structure of all the chaos on the planet, and that they're like working on basically unraveling and reworking that flow. But when I got back out of hospital, I was just like, I felt so shaken, like by like this experience, that I was like, what happened? Like, is there really like higher consciousness? Is there God? Is there, what is real? Am I crazy? All of that. And I just started meditating 3 hours a day, and kind of integrating that experience. And exactly a year later, the winter solstice, I meditated and I chanted again. I was like, I felt now like I was ready to give myself fully to love. So I just, in my meditation, said, beings of love and light, you can have my body. And in that moment, this thing shoots into my head again, and the whole thing starts over.
Wow. So you had like
Yeah.
a dry run. Didn't go so well. Ended up institutionalized. Well, you took yourself
exactly.
Came out, and so when you came out of the hospital, were you still like questioning whether or not this was a real experience or an episode of psychosis, or did you have a good idea that it was like, oh no, it was probably real, I don't believe the doctors?
My heart never questioned it, but I had no way of explaining it. And I had also, I had no concept of, I didn't know that there's other people going through stuff like that. I didn't know that there's Kundalini awakenings.
Right.
I think that's actually the danger, what happens if you take meditation completely out of the mystical tradition. Because now meditation is just an isolated tool without any like
setting, like a drug.
Yeah, I mean, it's meditation. I think like you need to be if you go into like extreme meditation, you need to be prepared to encounter the spirit world. And if you don't believe there is a spirit world and you have extreme resistance to it, that might be a problem. You know, that like that's I think happened to me. It's like I encountered the spirit world, but I didn't believe in it.
Right.
So then there's one part fighting against the other, you know, and yeah, so then I basically spent that year building the foundation of how I can access and explain consciousness and higher levels of consciousness. And so I went around and interviewed physicists because I didn't really like spiritual language. I couldn't really just take on a dogma. So I want to understand like quantum physics. I want to understand what is really, what are scientists saying about the very essence of reality. And so I had the pleasure of speaking with many really amazing scientists that are coming to a point where they say that actually consciousness is the foundation of reality, and that matter is a organized information by consciousness. And not that matter is creating consciousness, it's the other way around. And so I feel like that kind of is more helpful, because that's the truth also that you have when you go into a mystical experience, is you're going out of this dense material world and you're connecting to more liberated forms of consciousness.
Which is impossible with your previous way of thinking, if the world was matter and you were in it and experiencing consciousness rather than the other way around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a contradiction there if you think that matter is the fundamental reality and that everything is fundamentally dead, right? Like science or materialism assumes that everything is made out of dead matter. But these experiences are the most exquisite aliveness in everything. And so I feel like that's already like another contradiction.
Did you end up finding out who or what, like when you had that moment where they put that energy into your head? Since you've learned, did you end up connecting with maybe if there were particular guides or not? Because I just got shown in my head a name of someone particular working with you. So I'd just like to know if you found out anything, or doesn't it matter?
You know, to me, it doesn't matter as much, because I think that at a certain level of consciousness, it's nameless and formless. It's just like unity consciousness.
Yes,
and I think that
I agree.
and I think that, you know, Jesus Christ, Buddha, and all these godheads are basically all connected too.
Yes,
they're also the same thing. even I think, people having spiritual experiences and then referring to them as aliens. I also think that aliens are also part of that. Like I think that there's many civilizations that are evolving into higher forms of consciousness, and once those civilizations reach higher forms of consciousness, they merge. And I think so it's kind of all extending into that same oneness. I don't really know what particular godhead, so to speak, contacted me. What names were you getting?
I was like, I know who, but like you said, I also agree that we're all just one. We are all each other, and we're all connected. We are all God, or whatever you want to call it, the universe.
Yeah.
I do agree with that. But a name jumped in my head, and so I'm like, I haven't heard that before. So I looked it up while you were talking out of curiosity. And it was the name Ishtar, which a film has been made of. But Ishtar is a goddess of love and war. Sexual love, especially, and war. So it's like a balance. And I thought it was interesting because you were choosing fear over love. And I was reading it going, that's interesting. So it was a goddess.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that.
Semitic goddess of fertility and war, love and war. Like it's balance. And I just
this is so. Do you know the Greek goddess Alcmena?
I've heard of. Yeah, I've heard of.
That was another weird thing. When I was in the mental hospital, there was a book on my desk, and it was a red book, and there was also a blue book, and that was the Bible. And the red book said access in 10 minutes. And so I was like, I guess I'll check this out. I looked at the access book, and it was all like random computer code that I could not understand. But something in my head when I was looking at it was making like almost like ticking sounds, as if something in me was understanding it. And I got freaked out and closed the book. But before I did, I noticed there was a piece of paper on it with a name, a telephone number, and an address. Akeem Stevenson was his name, and there was an address, phone number. And I was like, you know what? Once I get out of here and I feel like ready, I'll give this number a call just to see
like
what the heck,
so
you know?
cool.
Like a movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so when I got out, I waited a month and I called that number. And then the person picked up and was like, "Hi, this is Pooch. I'm here to make things happen. What do you need?"
What?
And
It was like a drug dealer.
yeah, so I was like, "Okay, Pooch, that's not the name on the piece of paper. That's not the name on the piece of paper." And so I was like, "Okay, I just want to know what happened to me. Why was this book on my desk? Why is your number in there?"
And
he
why
said,
"Oh, Pooch."
Yeah, exactly.
Where did came from? Like,
no. But anyway, so he was like, someone must have thought it's appropriate to connect us. And I was like, okay, well, do you know what happened to me? And he said, yes, I do. Aliens came for you. They heard you. And I was like, aliens came for me? And he was like, yes, they're all around you. You can't see them. They're invisible. But they're working with you. And they heard you. And I said, what aliens are they? And he said, Alcmena. And so I looked it up, and Alcmena is a Greek goddess of love, fertility, and divine protector of agriculture and divine protector of mankind.
So it might be a different nationality, like.
Yeah. So it's very funny. It was very weird. Like I was like, okay, like maybe this guy is another patient that left us there.
Sure.
Probably.
But how why does he say this? Like it just felt very weird. And it felt very weird. He was pretending to be very psychic. He said like he could see me where I was sitting. And
did he get it right?
He said that he can remote view, that he basically can, tune psychically into things and people, and he said there's many galaxies with civilizations on them, and he can visit them and so on.
So did you say that goddess was also agriculture?
Yeah.
This one also says a goddess of dates, wool, meat, and grain.
Wow. This is very interesting. I mean,
Anyway,
this is wild. Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Everything you said about Ishtar,
similar.
or that's also everything that came into my life. Like now, Moon Hooch is planting trees. Our goal is to plant 1 million trees.
Oh, great! Yeah,
we're working with like permaculture farms also.
wonderful.
I also am really passionate about exploring other tribal psychological and mystical structures that integrate also the war path. And Vajrayana Buddhism, which also does that, integrates the war path, where you basically have warriors of light serving the Buddha, so to speak. And also I really got into tantric meditation and like basically sexual energy cultivation and all that stuff. So it seems like all those attributes of those goddesses are now really like things that are my passions and that I'm like actively pursuing. Excellent. So I mean, whether I think whether you think about it metaphorically or not, I think it's definitely interesting. Yeah.
I love that everything can be looked at as like a coincidence as well. A lot of the things that you could look at as a coincidence, but it comes into the perception, right? How you perceive it is whether or not it's a coincidence or if it's a sign.
Right.
And what you do with it is really important, because a lot of these signs could absolutely just be accident. But you see people that flow in life, they're the ones that are no longer judging whether it's accident or not, because anything can be accident. That's the point. I think a really wise person once talked to me about miracles, saying that miracles are, rarely break the laws of nature, and nor do they have to. So for it to break the law of nature to be a miracle, that's not always the case. So many miracles happen without breaking. So it kind of goes into that. But I mean, if I wanted to mess with people at a psych ward, I would leave a strange book with a phone number on it, and then
tell them crazy stories.
Yeah.
And tell them crazy stories
with just a thing and say and make up some goddess thing. Like, could that be true? Yeah, sure. But that person's got way too much time on their hands because they didn't try and get any money out of you. So
I look a bit matrixy, like
you know what's weird too? I got an apartment 3 years later or 2 years later, and then I randomly found a piece of paper again. I looked at the address and I was like, oh my god, he's my neighbor. And
you surprised me then. Oh my god.
Okay.
But at that point I was like, you know what, whatever that is, I don't want to explore it. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how this happened. I don't need to know. And
you know what? You don't want him remote viewing you while you're in the shower either. Do you know what I mean? It's like, mate, I know you're not remote viewing. I can see the camera. You're a creep. I'm calling the police.
Wow.
Do you guys know about remote viewing?
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing, right? I didn't know that the military, Stanford University, they were all conducting experiments that had like 80% accuracy of people perfecting remote viewing skills.
Yeah, they get it I know someone who's on social media who does that a lot, and explains her findings and has a big following. Very.
I'm super skeptical still.
I've never practiced it.
I'm super skeptical. I'm
super
super skeptical. Like my favorite movie is Constantine, and the way they get into the nightclub is they have to remote view the cards. So they're holding these like strange cards with strange things on there, and they have to remote view. And if they remote view, the bouncer lets them in the door. It's my favorite thing ever. I'm like, wow, that'd be so cool to be in that club.
What's the movie called?
Constantine. It's an actor. He's not really that well known. Keanu Reeves.
I gotta watch that movie. That sounds awesome.
Oh,
I've actually never seen Constantine, and I love him, and I keep meaning to watch it.
Oh,
I'll write it down.
Write it down. It's a lot of fun. It would actually be a movie I'm sure you would absolutely love. A lot of really cool mystical stuff in there. But I'm just so I want to believe. My problem with it, the reason why I'm skeptical sometimes on things, I'm skeptical on things that I really want to believe.
Yeah.
Because because I don't trust myself.
Yeah.
I just want it to be true.
Yeah.
Really hard.
I did
Interesting.
an experiment that's not exactly the remote viewing, but I was going down a rabbit hole of researching remote viewing, and I got in touch with Brenda Dunn from the Princeton Anomalies Research Lab.
Okay.
She started studying remote viewing, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then she went into the way probability reacts to intention.
Yes.
And so that's also very interesting. For those of you that don't know about this, is basically when you have any random set of numbers being generated and someone has a wish or an intention of getting a certain number, it raises the probability of that number being generated. It's not by a lot, but by a few percent.
Enough that you can judge it.
Yeah, if you do it over a million throws, it becomes pretty substantial.
They did it with dice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I did it with dice for 3 months. I practiced it every day.
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I had dice every day. I threw them, and I visualized the number before I threw them. And after 3 months, I calculated how much I pushed the probability, and I had pushed it by 33%, which is like, and that's an unheard of number. Like in these scientific studies, it's more like 5% or 2% or something.
And off you go to the casino. Awesome.
But right. And I also talked to Tom Campbell about this, who's a NASA physicist, and he wrote the book My Big Theory of Everything. It's like a 900-page book, basically reconstructing science based on the idea that consciousness is the fundamental aspect of reality. And he says that there's a psi factor, that basically there's a larger consciousness system building or overseeing this incarnation system in which consciousness believes itself to be physical creatures and interacts with itself to grow. And he says that there's a psi factor in that system which prevents you from basically showing that there is not a physical reality. So he says the more people that don't believe in something, the more that affects the probability. So if you do a very public experiment, you're more likely to demonstrate the public belief. But if you yourself already accept that you can bend reality, and you do this experiment that you can't prove to anyone else because it's not like overseen and peer reviewed, that's, I think, why I was able to do 33%, because now you just have my word, right? I can show you the numbers, but no scientist is going to believe this, because they can say, oh, well, you could have made it up.
Do you think that this is by design? Do you think that there is like a law or something over the, our experience as humans in this dimension on this planet, that there's a collective kind of consciousness that's got like a bit of a law where it keeps us in this experience so we don't pop out too much, so these sorts of things can't affect, because overall consciousness keeps a certain reality in check?
I have some hypotheses. I wouldn't say I believe them fully, because like I feel like at some certain level of uncertainty, I don't fully believe things.
Yeah, great.
But my hypothesis would be that there is such a thing as consensus reality. That this reality is actually only what we all conceive it to be and decide what it is. Once that changes, the reality can change. And I think everything is affected by that. I mean, we've already seen at the subatomic level that whether we have information about a particle or not changes the particle. Whether we want something from also changes the probability. So we already see it. Yeah, right. So we already see that consciousness is actually entangled with the very essence, the building blocks of reality. So based on that, where are the limits of that entanglement? Where are the limits? Like, no one really knows. But my hypothesis is that the limits are what we decide the limits are, but collectively. So I think that basically when you're trying to have these really far out experiences and trying to prove them, you are going to run into the inertia of the collective field that says, no, it's not true. And that has a real effect, in the sense that that group of people will keep asserting to themselves that their beliefs are correct.
Mhm.
So that is a real limit to what reality is.
That's why that's why healers like me and other people, we do what we do to help raise the vibration of so many people.
Yeah.
We can literally change the world to be a
Yeah.
better place. That's why we're here. So I definitely resonate with what you're saying.
So
Absolutely.
so meditation's a big part of your life, ever since, everything that's happened. So what happens when you meditate? When I say you, I mean, well, maybe I'm asking you because maybe your experience is different to
Right,
others.
anyone?
But like, what happens when someone meditates?
I think what happens is that on a neurological level, you synchronize your brain.
Okay.
So brain waves become synchronized. What happens when brain waves become synchronized is actually they become musical. So when music sounds good, in tune, it just means that the vibrations are all synchronized.
Mhm.
So if you heard a not in tune fifth or octave, you would go, you instantly notice dissonance. When we are stressed, that's what happens in our brain. It's one part of us fires a different ratio than here, and it's all out of sync. When you meditate, what happens is you synchronize it. The brain waves become harmonics of each other, all ratios of each other. So even ratios, and so then that also synchronizes with the heart. That the heartbeat the brain becomes a harmonic of the heart. And gamma waves, the really high ones in the brain, are synchronized with the heartbeat, and the whole thing is a synchronized system. So that happens on a neurological level. I think on the level of consciousness is that you become freed from all these thoughts. You become freed from linear processing, right? This happened and that happens and so on. This whole storyline of 3 dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
You become freed of that, and your consciousness is free to go back to its origin, which I think is beyond this dimension. I mean, it's also a hypothesis, can't prove that, but I think it comes from beyond the physical reality. And I think just being present, you basically are connecting to that. And, when I meditate, I think it's very similar these days than when other people meditate. Like, I don't have these like intergalactic experiences anymore, like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
For me, it's more about taking that inspiration and putting it into tangible things,
Mhm.
like books, board games, music, relationships, workout routines, healthy diet, and just trying to like make it all tangible. I think that living into like at the same time being like conscious of like other realities and multiple dimensions all at the same time is frankly too much for me. Like I wouldn't be able to handle it. I know some people that do. Like I have a friend that basically goes into other realities. They don't sleep. They just go into other realities and have experiences there with other formless beings and so on. But for me, meditation is more just processing my daily stress and my trauma responses that might be triggered by whatever I'm going through. And dealing with all my human faults and flaws in a compassionate and kind way, where I'm not trying to push them away and say, no, I'm a spiritual being, I don't want anything of this human stuff. I've been there, done that doesn't work. For me, it's more like I gotta go and like love the human that I am for all the faults I have, and
Beautiful.
And be honest about them, like not put up a mask and say like I'm some sort of enlightened spiritual preacher that has it all figured out, but more be like, I'm actually very indecisive sometimes, to the point where it drives people and myself crazy. And it's just kind of like dealing gently with my humanness. That's really my meditation.
That's unconditional love right there. Loving your shadow side and not trying to hide pretend you're something that you're not. So
Yeah.
loving both sides of yourself, all sides of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think having that high expectation of yourself as a spiritual being or a spiritual advancement is the fastest way to really hate yourself in private.
Yeah.
You know, people talk about
Yeah.
being humble and, oh, that's wonderful that you're humble. And you're like, oh, no, it's not about me being humble. It's just you suffer so much more if you have this high expectation of yourself as a spiritually and like advanced being, because it becomes so evident when you're alone that you're not.
And other people put you on a pedestal too, because they think
Yeah.
you're supposed to always, you know, that's happened to me before. I make one mistake and come crashing down from such a great height to in other people's eyes. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, great for everyone to remember where everyone's human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there's actually a lot of spiritual teachers, especially in the past, that don't acknowledge that. And then it becomes like weird toxic cults and stuff because spiritual leaders and teachers isolate themselves. They become basically this capsule that don't get honest reflections anymore. Because everyone is just like, oh, teacher, oh, teacher. And then that person really becomes lonely, stifles their growth. And then they might feel like, you know, then they start trying to get pleasure or humanness in ways that's not really good. Like, Guru Dev is a great example of that. Is an Indian enlightened master, so to speak. But then, like, sexual scandal, he loses his whole ashram. And now he has a new ashram, changed his name. He was actually, before he had a different name. Now he's Guru Dev. Changed his name, new branding, starts over, right? And so I visit this ashram and I hear him give a talk, and he's just belittling everyone. He's just like, oh, you unenlightened, stupid people, you know, like that's the vibe he gives across. He doesn't say those words, but just like laughs at everyone's faults and puts himself above them.
Yeah.
And so then he's like, oh, we have a new person here. Do you want to come up and like touch my feet or whatever? So I like walk up to him and I was like, hey man, like the way you talk to everyone, I just really did not appreciate it. I feel like
you said that to him.
Yeah, I said in front of every
kid touches his feet. Kiss my
and then he was like, how old are you? And I was like 26 at the time. It's like, well, you look like you're 17. And I was like, really? That's where you're gonna bring it now? This is the best you got.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's exactly the part of you that makes me feel uncomfortable. It's like that's the part of you that that he doesn't show himself or his followers.
Yep.
On you for calling him out.
I think, and the people like that have really people like that, and also the Western culture has really destroyed the word guru. Like, guru is someone that just knows everything about everything. You can come to them and become enlightened, and it's like that's not what guru is. Like, guru is like somebody that comes and is able to, well, you come to them, and they can shine a light on you to find yourself and your own enlightenment. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So it's literally just shining the light back, and that can be through hard love or whatever it is, doesn't matter. And it's such a shame that the word guru now is like associated with these morons, egotistical morons.
I've ruined the word,
and even like touching the feet. Like, this is a very ancient Indian tradition. That can be quite a powerful exchange of energy. These people just see this as, oh, you touch my feet, you know.
Yeah, the attitude behind it is demeaning for him when he's
I mean, I'm just personally like, I don't know. I think I was actually writing about this yesterday because I'm working on a new book where I'm kind of trying to go into these issues. And I think that giving another human that much authority in itself is always dangerous. I think, I mean, I could be totally wrong. Maybe it works for some people, but I think personally that much authority should only be given to your own God, or like to your own access to love, and to that love that you feel immediately. Because that's tangible. It's like, And I think that inner love, that inner source of love, can be trusted a lot more than someone else. Yeah.
I think as well, it's where you base that. I think there's some really incredible beings here on this planet that have been here and continue to come. And I feel like, particularly with these gurus or these spiritual teachers, I think a big question you have to ask is, if this guru or spiritual teacher dies, how will you feel? And if you feel absolutely devastated because you've attached all of your spiritual growth and knowledge and awareness onto that person, then that's a real sign that maybe either the person isn't what you've put them on the pedestal for, or that maybe you haven't seen the being past the person.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of gurus live on. So if you want to look at the Christian faith, like with Jesus, so many people have a connection with the, Jesus is known for love and compassion, right? People have this great connection with Jesus, love and compassion. Like, this dude died a very long time ago. It's not the connection to the person, it's connection to the being or the spirit of that.
Yeah.
So a lot of these gurus, the same thing, where they still have that connection with the gurus have passed. And they miss seeing them in person, but that connection to the spirit is really important.
One, like,
but not, which is just a reflection of yourself anyway. But it's still a unique reflection. So I think, yes, we're all one, but like, I'm in no way Wenzl. But in every way, like, I played tenor saxophone in high school and I got to grade 7, which I was very proud of. I was terrible. That's about as close as we get, they're great to celebrate the different reflections of the one thing, and we can't live in the we are all one, because then we don't get to experience what we're here for.
We still got our human experience.
But at some stage, I think with those gurus and those teachers, there's the being that that we share the light from and maybe connect with and build our love from. That's the thing that we should attach to, because that thing doesn't go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Paul Selig also writes about this. He says, don't pray to the rock, pray to the source of the rock.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same idea, right? It's like, it's like once you reach a connection. Actually, I had that experience through a romantic relationship where it was like one of the most challenging romantic relationships in my life, because she had borderline personality disorder.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that means just that she embodies this pure, vibrant love for a couple of hours, and then tips over, it gets triggered, and it just becomes a feedback loop of like violent emotions.
Yep.
Huh? What do you say?
I just said that'll be exhausting. I just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Right, but a part of me just wouldn't accept that, like, this is where she's at, and just I really like saw and felt like her being, like who she really is, and it just became my heart's deepest desire to hold that relationship with her, no matter what happens to her. And it was just so volatile and like chaotic for like 8 years.
Oh wow, like 8 years.
Yeah. It was like one of the craziest connections I've ever felt to another person. Like we met actually like 3 months after these experiences stopped, like what I just told you about. And the way we met was also kind of wild. So when I was working with these beings, it was all about the figure 8 constantly. That was like the symbol. And then I went into a jewelry store and I wanted to pick up a necklace, and one just fell from the hanger and landed in a figure 8.
Another coincidence. Yep.
So I was like, okay, cool. I'll have that necklace.
No such thing.
And so I put on that necklace, and then I meet Marion I probably shouldn't say her name. I meet her in the subway, and she's wearing the same necklace. And
wow.
And so
another coincidence. Yeah.
And then like the first one night stand we had, she was like wanted to explore tantric sex. And
Keepers.
and so we both like we just watched YouTube videos, and that's like how
Oh,
I
wow.
got into tantrics.
Put the explorer hat on. Let's go.
Okay.
Sounds like fun.
and then I had a dream that I went and visit her family, and that family was like a fallen apart home, and she was stuck in the house, and it was dark, and it was just anger and violence everywhere. And I took her by the hand. I was like, "Hey, let's get out of here." And I walked with her into the backyard, and there was a magnolia tree showering us in the flowers' leaves. And so I woke up from this dream kind of like, okay, like I guess this is what I have to do. And because I then just found out she just had run away from her abusive family.
Wow.
Her dad was beating her since she can remember, and she thought that's normal until she was 18 and realized that not everyone is supposed to be beaten.
Wow.
And then she ran away from home and just literally in a plastic bag with her things just ran away. And I met her in the subway.
Wow.
And so
wow.
yeah, I mean, she had already at that point had an apartment, or she had a room in an apartment. But anyway, so then her past just started manifesting in a lot of ways, and I also was totally like not really ready to hold space and commit to what that really meant. And so it just started becoming this extreme volatile thing. But eventually the love I felt for her and her presence became something that I started seeing and feeling everywhere. And it I mean, it was the most painful thing to get there. But eventually it started to get to that point where she revived an aspect in me that was just eternal love. And yeah, so I feel like it was, and whenever I would tune in on my meditations and ask like, what is this lesson that I'm learning with this woman? It was always unconditional love. No results, unconditional love. This is not about a perfect relationship.
An end point, yeah.
Yeah, this is about you learning unconditional love.
Wow.
And yeah.
Do you think with these lessons, because they're not always easy, well, they're never easy lessons, otherwise they're not lessons, they're just experiences, I guess.
Lessons are always hard.
They have to be.
Yeah.
But I couldn't help but think, going back to your story earlier around where you first had those beings touch you. So the beings of love from the 10th dimension. Just want to show respect. So when that had happened, and you had like a pretty horrific experience because of it, enough to sign yourself into a hospital. Like, there's one thing to say, it's another thing to go through it, where you actually take yourself to a psych ward. There must be a lot of turmoil. But with that, like, looking at that as if, I wasn't ready yet. Do you think that maybe you were ready for that experience to then lead you into the next experience when, the year later, where you said, okay, I'm ready, let's do it? Like, do you think that you needed to go through that and go take yourself into the hospital and question everything and rip it down just to be in a position that you are when you do say, I'm ready, you're actually ready?
My math teacher told me in like 5th grade or whatever, like, that I'm going to have a lot of problems in life because I'm trying to run before I can walk.
Yeah.
And that is true. Like, that I think I took that approach to spirituality. I took that approach to relationships. I always want to run all the way immediately as fast as I can with the maximum amount of energy. And so I just blast myself into these extreme situations that are really kind of violent to myself. And I don't think anyone should go that path that I went. I think it's much better to go gradual. To have more respect and patience and humility, and not try to go all the way right away. I think inviting guides into your life is a beautiful thing to do. But it wasn't that what just was the turmoil. For me, the turmoil was also all my unconscious dark motivations for power.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, like that, like when I had this experience, there was a part of me that was like, wow, that's gonna make me so powerful.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then that is completely not serving love.
Yeah. But it looks the same at the time.
Yeah.
At the time I was just not wise enough. I was like just like a 24-year-old guy that just like wanted to impress women, play good shows, and be an alpha male or whatever. Like I was totally an unconscious person.
Gotcha.
When I had these experiences. Like, so I feel like it could have been much.
Broke that down though, right?
Oh yeah, it totally made it impossible to follow, because it exposed it as such false and gross lies to use that motivation for love, to use love and divine power for selfish reasons is disgusting. And I mean, I'm not trying to judge anyone, but like that's just kind of what it showed me in myself. But yet I had put so much energy and into basically becoming a man in this society. And I think a man in the society is taught to want to be powerful and to impress others and demonstrate worth through achievement.
Peacock.
Yeah, right. That's what our society says. That's a good man. Maybe that's not quite right, but I think there is a lot of that in our society.
I agree.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, huh?
You have integrity, which is good.
What does that exactly mean? Like
you walk your talk. You do what you say you believe in.
Yeah, I mean, I try. My number one goal in life is to never have more responsibility than I can handle in terms of continuing my growth.
Okay.
That's really good. Beautiful.
Yeah. I don't ever want to be like, well, whatever, you get the point. But I think anyway that I was dealing with like toxic masculinity on a spiritual level.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like without having the terms or the psychological foundation for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's, maybe a little slower to learn for like a severely traumatized man to start unpacking all the fears. Why do I want to impress others? Gotcha. What is the motivation behind that? Why do I want to be powerful? What are the motivation behind that? And it's all fear, right? You want power because you're afraid that you are powerless. And because you don't trust that if others have power, you're taken care of.
Yeah.
So it's fear of abandonment too. It's like, and fear then of that God abandoned me, right?
Yeah.
It's like this like profound fear of no one cares about me. And so I think unraveling that first would have probably been the right step to do, and then start going into like a deep mystical path, not going to a mystical path only to discover that I actually never learned how to walk.
Yeah.
Power of reflection.
Yeah.
I have so much respect, and now I have a man crush as we were talking about this thing, because it's really beautiful. And I know so many women trying to find men that are understanding of their toxic masculinity and are working on it. And that's really wonderful to hear, that all the things you recognize, all the reflections you have is really amazing. So well done to you for listening.
It's really honestly, I can thank the women in my life for having helped me with that.
Yeah, well, that's our job, I guess, nurturing and showing you can have emotions, and men are allowed to have feminine connection and balance, and so are women, and to nurture that space for you to grow. So yeah, good job.
I think as well, it's not necessarily a who but a when. A Wenzl no, but a when, because you look at Wenzl, I guess from what you went through in your life further back was a different person to who you are now. And I guess what I was getting at was, every lessons in our life, are they things that we're meant to go through to learn something? And I guess you've kind of highlighted, well, some things you can do better. And you went through the way you went through, you can look back and go, not everyone has to do it that way. And that might have been the only way you were able to do it at that age.
Yeah.
But there's heaps of better ways.
Others, yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess I was looking at the relationship, that was something that you had to do to learn more, or to feel more, or whatever you were doing with unconditional love. But the other things you can do better. Do things lighter. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I'm trying to do that now, like learn from that and not not start a million projects at once, for example. And then try to want everything to be finished in a month, like that is my desire. Like I do want to do that, but it doesn't work, and it makes me anxious and stressed. So now I'm just trying to be like, okay, Wenzl, just slow down a little bit, just learning how to like design board games. Don't rush the process. And so I feel like I'm also getting lessons now in my life that are forcing me to slow down. And I've also received that message many times, but I never listened to it.
Timing.
Like I remember we were on tour and we were going to this drumming circle somewhere in Florida on the beach, and our tour manager at the time, he has a very strong spiritual connection. He like sometimes just walks off into the woods and plays his shakuhachi flute for hours just communes with the birds, and then comes back like glowing almost. But anyway, so he was in a drum circle, and he goes to me, it's like, Wenzl, I have a message for you. And then he says, you have to let more time pass. But I was like, I don't know, whatever. Like I just kept like living my busy life and just doing everything really quickly. But then I think life started slowing me down, where it's like, just the way circumstances would work out. It's like suddenly that relationship was actually a huge, like, it slowed me down, because I was like writing books 12 hours a day, like composing music at night, just being like a total workaholic on like bringing as much love to the world as quickly as possible, like, and wanting to raise consciousness immediately, and like, all this urgency
to help, right? Which is understandable. But when you don't listen to the little signs from the universe that slaps you in the face and makes you slow down, so it's like either you listen or here you go, boom, now you have to slow down.
So the point is listen, right? Is listen.
Pay attention.
It's an easier way, just listen.
Right, yeah.
So you mentioned board games, and I keep wanting to ask that. So can you change of tune, but can you
Yeah, sure. So this is my board game.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, wow. I love this.
Non-physical.
Yeah.
Yes. It's so it's a game. Let me see if I can show you the board.
You've got a video on your website as well.
Oh yeah,
where you explain it, which is just freaking awesome.
I didn't get a chance to watch that yet.
People need time to soak this in. Go back and watch the video, but please show us and tell us about it. I love this thing.
Okay, I don't know how well I will translate in this camera. Can you see it?
We're gonna go back a little.
Blurs it out. Go back.
We see a lot of spirals and okay.
Oh, whatever. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Yep. It's swirly.
Beautiful.
Reduces hair.
Anyway, so it's based on spirals, and they're emotional spirals. So the spirals represent different emotions. There's one main spiral that goes from start to inner peace. And on the way, you can fall into arrogance, self-doubt, anxiety, and every negative emotion I could think about. And when you fall into that spiral, then you roll the die, and then you lead the group in breathing exercise based on the number you rolled. Awesome. And then you share about that emotion that represents that spiral.
Oh my goodness.
And then other people try to help you get out of your emotion and get back on track towards inner peace. And they can do that very well when they become non-physical players. Either when they reach inner peace, they retire their board game piece, and they keep rolling the die and help people, and can split up their die rolls and move people out of the spirals. but before you touch someone else's piece, you have to ask for consent. Otherwise, you fall into the arrogance spiral.
Oh my
that's
gosh.
awesome.
So you can be a spirit, you can be a spirit guide in this
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
But even as the spirit guide, you can make a mistake and
If
be
you forget
punished.
to ask for consent, yes.
Gotcha.
As a
That's
spirit guide,
lessons.
yeah, if you forget to ask for consent, you become back a physical player, and you have to play in arrogance now, and share about arrogance and get out of that spiral. And yeah, so
Wow.
it's a really cool way to basically have like a conscious gathering without a leader.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I can imagine that in
Yeah,
spiritual
yeah.
circles and in coaching groups and
Yeah.
family game time. Just what beautiful discussions this would
Yeah.
bring up in a family. I'm just thinking
Yeah.
family. We got 6 kids. So just imagine we playing that together and talking about. So it's just great talking points. I'm
Oh
excited.
yeah, I played with my aunt, my uncle, and my niece.
Oh, how
and it was amazing. We had like suddenly like we talked about things that we would never ever talk about. But, you know, it suddenly broke down like a barrier that usually doesn't get broken down, and it does it in like an interesting setting, you know, where everyone breathes together, so no one can get too stressed out about sharing emotions. Because
awesome. I'm
yeah.
ordering this game.
It sounds like it's very shifting as well. So like there's like a healing element where you're actually sharing something with someone else about something that's happened and then breathing through it. It sounds like
yeah,
you can actually shift some emotions just
yeah,
by playing the game. And then the support
absolutely.
of helping each other. It's quite dynamic in how it can be quite not just fun, but like quite a therapeutic process as well. Is that what it was? When you were designing it, did it come to you as like, oh, this is going to be a therapeutic thing? Or did you just think, oh, this would be a great way for people to connect on a higher level?
You know, I was writing my book, The Sequence of Latent Truths. And that book is about the larger consciousness system. Or basically, it's a way to rationally get to the bigger picture without giving up logic. And so I basically then just had this really like clear idea. I was like, wait, we're this like non-physical pieces of consciousness, go into physical beings, get lost in emotions, hopefully help each other get out of our emotions, so we can get to inner peace, realize we are a non-physical consciousness, and help more.
Amazing.
And I was like, that's a hilarious board game. And so I was at the time just traveling with my ex-wife, going down in our RV, and I was in the middle of the desert and I started drawing it, and then I played it with my mom, and she was like, that is the worst thing you've ever created. You're wasting your time.
Does she not like dealing with her emotions? Is that why?
Well, at the time there was also play cards, and it was like really convoluted, the game, and it wasn't. And actually my mom said you should have an element where people can be more creative and spontaneous, because the first iteration of the game didn't have any of these rules.
Good job, Mom. Yep.
So she did push me in the right direction, but she did it in such a harsh way that I first abandoned the idea completely. And it was only a year later that I found my old sketch, and I was like, you know what? When Mom also told me I'm the worst saxophone player ever and I should really be an artist. And like when I first started playing saxophone, she was like, you're wasting your time. You have no talent. You have no sense of pitch. And so
okay, to be fair, you've made a career out of playing saxophone. My family said how wonderful I was at saxophone, and I sucked. So I don't know, like
okay. Reverse psychology maybe works.
For me it does work. For me it does work. If someone says you can't do this, then I'm like, really? I can't do this? Let me try.
Awesome.
Let me try to prove you wrong. That's kind of sometimes like my child self motivation.
Love it.
But anyway, so then I finally worked on another iteration of that game, and I played that with other people on tour. And every time I always ask people, how do you guys like the game, and what could I do better, and so on. And then this year I just had it, and I was like, you know what, I should really just get this printed. And then it just took me 7 months of just dealing with
Yeah.
that process. There was
Imagine.
way more than I thought, but now I have finally 1,000 pieces in my other bedroom. It's
Amazing.
literally like stacked to the ceiling of board
So
games.
if I order one, you're actually wrapping it up and posting it to me.
No, Amazon will. But
Okay, fine.
but
Very
I don't
cool.
know if it ships to Australia, honestly.
We're gonna
Make
try
sure
it.
Yeah,
We'll try it out
put
for
it
you.
out because I know some
Okay.
people who would play this game, like that would love it. I'm thinking of particular healing centers.
Yeah.
Would love to have this game in their
I'm
space.
buying one for my clinic, 100%.
If it doesn't work, if it doesn't work, let me know. I'll ship you some.
All right, I think it will.
Yeah.
Amazon's
Yeah.
pretty good. Yeah,
Amazon might, we'll see.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can post it directly. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. It's a really great idea. I'm so glad you did it. It's such a cool game. I can't wait to play it. We'll do it as one of our prizes. We do a New Moon prize.
Yes.
We'll get one for one of our prizes. So one of our listeners will get one for a New Moon prize as well. So
that sounds
cool,
Michael.
Amazing.
Good idea. Because we love we've decided we're going to start promoting if we if people that we interview have a tangible physical
product
that we can give, and
that
we
are
give
good.
for people for commenting on our YouTube posts, which helps us get seen and gives us feedback. It's a great incentive that we'll do a New Moon prize every month.
Awesome.
Like a great idea. Awesome. And so what about, you also have guided meditations, which I'm really curious about.
Yes. We started doing that during COVID because we had this 6-week-long Europe tour set up. Had already bought all the flights and hotels and everything. And then suddenly, on the third show, the whole tour got canceled, and I was then just living in the middle of nowhere in California, and then we started doing this weekly contribution to our fans, and so I did meditation Mondays, where I made a meditation every Monday.
Wow.
And and if you go to my website and shoot me a text, then I'll send you every Monday a meditation.
Oh wow, that's amazing. That's great.
Done.
Fantastic. That's really good.
Yeah.
So are they themed? What does it entail? You just said we, so is it your band? Are you
it's just I did it, but Mike and I, my band is Mike and I, and we started doing this weekly delivery of things. He would do workout videos for the fans, and we would also release a song every week. Yeah.
So
and also meditation music. So how are you doing? Are you doing meditation music with a saxophone? That'd be
that's what I was wondering.
Yes.
Wow.
I have the meditation music on my Spotify, and I guess you can click on my website as well.
Yeah.
It's I think 2.5 hour soundtrack. That is, I think that was the first time I felt like I could really express the love of these other dimensions, and really in a tangible, full blast way. And so I just started playing with a looper, basically. So I would play one line and then play on top of it, and it would just go on and on and on and on and on and on, and I would just build layer upon layer upon layer upon layer until it was hundreds of saxophones playing.
Wow.
And so that's the End of Fear soundtrack.
Ooh,
End of Fear. Oh wow, that's great.
Yeah, and that's also the name of my novel, because I was doing both at the same time. I was writing the novel and making this meditation music. So I was kind of thinking, you could listen to the meditation music while you read the novel.
Yeah, a bit of synchronicity there in what you're putting out. Yeah.
I love that idea of saxophone as meditation music. People usually think of really fluffy, light stuff. And so that's
right.
That's really cool. And it doesn't have to be like that. People think often that meditation has to be a certain way. A certain vibe and you have to have your eyes closed. You don't even have to have your eyes. You're staring at a flame if you want to. So that's really cool. That's going to definitely resonate with a lot of people. I like that.
I definitely do play the saxophone very differently when I'm playing it with Moon Hooch. It's much more I mean, it's Moon Hooch is very, you heard it, it's aggressive and upbeat and danceable.
Yeah.
But this meditation music, I'm playing really, really soft, and I have the microphone very close, so you hear a lot of the air coming through the saxophone.
Oh yeah.
And
Breathing.
yeah. And sometimes I create like ocean sounds by just breathing through the saxophone through some reverb.
Wow.
It creates like a wave sound.
Mm.
Yeah.
You can, there is a lot you can do with a saxophone. I used to, I remember when I was in concert bands, I used to heckle the other people in the saxophone group, but through my saxophone. So you could still talk and heckle them through the saxophone. And I probably should have spent more time practicing my scales maybe and technique and tone than heckling. But
then heck,
you do a Lisa Simpson and blame the reed, you know, like I don't know. If
you can always blame the reed. So
it's the reed. It's the reed. Yeah.
No, I think if you're in any concert band, if you're out of tune, there is no excuse. You'll get something thrown at you. I think that's tough love. I'm sure.
I'm jealous.
I had that experience on a cruise ship.
Oh wow! Did you play cruise ships?
Yeah, I was a saxophonist and flautist and clarinetist on a cruise ship.
Okay.
Yeah. But I got myself. This was like way before my spiritual awakening. Actually, like 4 years before. So I was quite a different person. But anyway, so the way I got this job was very unethical and arrogant.
Great. You're on a cruise ship. There's no other way.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. He's impressing all the ladies with his lips and blowing skills.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually, I told my parents that I'm going to quit studying music, and I want to because I just felt like I didn't really. Anyway, I wanted to quit, and they were like, okay, well then we're kicking you out of the house. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll find a job on a cruise ship. And so I found one on Craigslist to start in 4 months, but it required flute and clarinet and saxophone. I never played flute or clarinet before. So I called them up. It's like, hey, I'd like to set up a phone audition. And they said, great, next week works. So I called my friend who is a flautist and clarinetist and said, hey, could you play on my phone audition? And so my friend was like, sure. Unfortunately, my friend was a virtuoso on flute and clarinet.
No.
So the agent was like, oh, it seems like your flute and clarinet is like totally your forte, and they put me on like the biggest cruise ship. they put me on the biggest cruise ship in the world as the lead clarinetist. And
how quickly you must have had to learn? Like, what did you do?
I practiced 8 hours a day for 4 months, and then I thought I had it down, but I had no idea what it means to play like a lead clarinet in a Broadway show type of setting.
Oh my God. No.
So I arrived there. I went to my cabin. I was sharing with a trombone player. The whole wall was just stacked with folders and folders and folders. Every day I would have to read through a stack of folders this thick for the different shows. And I looked at it as altissimo runs, 16-note runs everywhere, and I almost fainted. I was like, I've been living on, my parents kicked me out. I've been living on credit card. I bought a flute and a clarinet on a credit card, and I'm gonna get fired. It's like,
of course you are. That's crazy.
You're the epitome of that saying, say yes and work out how.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah, well, I did it too much. Like,
so what the hell
did you get fired?
No, I didn't get fired because I started practicing 15 hours a day.
So?
And also befriended the cruise director. So I noticed that he was getting drunk alone on the back deck every night. Smart. So I would practice all day and then just get a 6-pack of beer, sit with him, finish my 6-pack, and just talk about life with the cruise director. And so he was like, you're a good guy. I want to keep you around. But you have to get this show down. I give you 2 weeks. Meanwhile, you're going to pretend to be playing while I'll play a backing track from the previous musician. So I was doing that. But meanwhile, I was like, every time I was on stage, I had like cold sweats and trembling feet. And like the cruise director, like he was also no joke. Like he was
of course. You're on a big ship, yeah? So these people are like sessional.
He was very
sessional.
Oh, like when the trumpet player would make a mistake, he would literally stomp on his foot on stage. And anyway, so I managed barely to hang on to this job. And after like a month, like I was nailing it, and he actually wanted to extend my contract. But that was such a close call.
How did you not get thrown off the ship? Like, I feel like it's unethical to throw a musician off the ship because they'll probably die. But in that case, I mean, it's on the cards. It's
You
like,
just remind me of Titanic,
do we
where
make
the
this
band's
guy walk?
still playing as it goes, the ship goes down.
Make him walk the plank. You know, have
Yeah.
the trombone player.
Your anxiety, like I could feel how much what you would have been feeling up on that stage. Like, oh my goodness, that was
so you've done this your whole life.
It's great.
This is like your whole life. So you're just trying to change your modus operandi to just try and go, all right, let's not be the head clarinet player.
Yeah, I did the same thing with meditation. That's exact same attitude. Exact same attitude.
That's
my God. So people, there's better ways, and Wenzl will show you how.
Hey, but that taught you so much, and also taught you learned like a smart way of getting around things. It's not always
it's just
kinds of smart, and you sucked up to the manager, and that was very clever. You don't have to be book smart to work that stuff out. You need nous, like you need tenacity and guts and personality.
I mean,
yes.
I feel like
that makes no sense. I don't
other
care.
ways to get around things. You did it.
No, you must be a genius. Not only to be like that determined. Like I have no idea how you just. If anyone's practiced anything for 4 hours straight, they're exhausted, right? And particularly when it's something hard that they don't think they can do. You were batting
way
so high above your average. And then 15 hours a day, stressful, and then trying to win over. That makes no sense. You're very talented, obviously.
So much determination.
Obviously very talented, but like, how did you focus for so long to be good enough to not get thrown off that ship? How did you focus for 15 hours?
I mean, I didn't have no other option. Like, I couldn't go back to New York. I was in debt, and my parents had thrown me out. So, like, for me, I had run out of options, and I was like, I have to just not die, but like I have to like sit here and do this no matter what. I mean, I was having panic attacks throughout the practice constantly.
Well, yeah,
like,
you could have been
to the point where my vision would get blurry and I would have a panic attack, you know. But I just stuck with it, and I just really.
That's inspirational for people to listen to, regardless of like,
Yeah, maybe what not to do, you know.
Definitely what not to do. Definitely not what to do, but how incredible that you do have that focus. You can, and what an adventure.
Anything you put your mind to, that's like, even if that was probably not a great way to do it. But
oh my God, that's incredible.
Amazing.
I'm still a little bit stressed, and I know you made it, but I'm still freaking out here. That is like,
I would have chickened out. Like,
I mean, the whole thing was important though, because the way Moon Hooch is now is very much because of that experience.
Yeah.
Because I befriended the DJ on the cruise ship, who was this tall guy from Serbia. And he had the keys to the club. So the club would open at 11 p.m. and be empty all day with this giant sound systems. So once I had like the shows managed and I didn't have to focus on practicing them anymore, I actually had a lot of time.
Yeah.
And so I would hang out with him at the club and we would produce music together. And then one of the agents somehow heard that we're doing that and was like, could you produce music for another cruise ship? And we have a show coming up for 2 drummers and a DJ. And they're like, have you ever written music for drums? And I was like, of course I have, which I had never had, but
say yes, work out how. Yep, cool.
So I just called up some drummer friends. It's like, how do you write music for drums? And then they're like, okay, there's notation. So
hard.
I figured
drum scores are pretty easy. Yeah,
that's probably pretty easy. So anyway, so I would just then like basically wrote, and we composed this track for the show, and I wrote the sheets for the drummers. And then we started selling shows to the other cruise ships. And And then when I got back to New York, I was doing that for a little bit, just writing production shows and producing shows for cruise ships. And then I just hated it. I started hating it because like it just felt so uncreative. I mean, I probably should have been content and grateful for like that's what I got out of the experience. But instead, I was like, what's the next thing? And so I just started writing electronic music for saxophones and playing that in the subways with my friends and neighbors. And then that created Moon Hooch. And I mean, Moon Hooch, it's a whole nother story, right? Because, you know, James and Mike brought their influences and their inspiration into it. But that was my inspiration, like the electronic aspect for saxophones.
Yeah.
And then that took off. And everyone told me that this would go nowhere. Like my roommate was like, yeah, Moon Hooch is a novelty act that you'll never be playing festivals or tours. And then 2 years later, I called him and asked him if he wants to tour manage a show, tour manage us for playing a bunch of festivals and clubs. and the whole tour, I was like, yeah, remember your prediction? Yeah,
this is your punishment.
You're like master manifestor when someone I have to just do this, and you set your mind to it and it's done. Like, that's great.
I feel like you should have a t-shirt that just says just muscle it, because that works in the spiritual side of things as well. It's I don't have time to meditate. It's like just muscle it.
And I'm curious.
Sit down for 10 minutes. You can do 10 minutes. Trust me. You know.
Before you jumped on this morning, I said to Michael, I've got a feeling the name Moon Hooch, you know, and I want to know how the name came about, because in my imagination, I'm seeing hooch or an alcohol concoction being made in a bath under a full moon, and you're getting wasted and you like put the names together and you come up with Moon Hooch. Where's that name from? I'm really curious.
We were playing the subways. We had no intention of forming a band, and people were just dancing. And one person just asked us what our name was, and Mike, the other saxophone player, was like, Moon Juice. And then we were like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, that's a cool name. Good. But then there was like 4 bands called Moon Juice.
What?
So we went through the thesaurus dictionary to replace juice. And we liked Hooch because then our name would have 4 O's, and just that kind of looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Moon Hooch. That's
aesthetics. Cool. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's also why we signed up for Yahoo, the email. I mean, back in the day, we don't use Yahoo or whatever, however you pronounce it. We don't use it anymore, but then we had a bunch of O's in our email, and we were proud of being O collectors.
That's good. That's good. I like it. Okay. I like it. I like how this podcast ended full circle back to the music, but
yes,
I guess we can't escape looking at you and your kind of evolution this time around on the planet, and not associate it with music.
Yes.
Like that poor guru. I love that. How old are you? 26. You're like, which lifetime are you talking about, champ?
Yeah.
You could have been his teacher, 20 lives ago.
He was probably
maybe
50
he was just
and
getting
70.
That's funny.
But yeah, this is it's been lovely to share with the music and spirituality and flow, and the next time I listen to an awesome song, I'm going to try and get in the river.
And just dodge those rocks.
Dodge the rocks and just go into the river.
I love that.
Go with the flow, man.
Go with the flow, man. I love that. No, it was beautiful.
That was so fun, Wenzl. Really appreciate
likewise
with you, and the really interesting conversations. Like, we love not knowing where it's going to go, which is super fun as well. Like so
you both made my day. It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Well, you're a beautiful person, and it was a great conversation.
Thank you
so much for coming on the show, and we'll put in the show notes your website, because it's not just about the music. There's so much more that you can really offer. So I really implore people to go and have a look, because there's some wonderful stuff. And excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
That's it for another episode. Thanks to our major supporter, Subtle Energy Sciences. Click the link in the show notes to access their full product range of quantum healing technology.
You're blown away by this technology and are so excited to share it with you.
And of course, we really want to hear from you.
Please leave your comments on our YouTube channel, or for those podcast listeners, you can email us at mickandthepsychic@gmail.com to leave your feedback or questions.
I'm a certified hypnotherapist and timeline regression therapist. If you wish to contact me to explore the source of an issue you're facing, just book a session at hearnhypnosis.com and include the promo code MATP for 10% off. You can contact me on Insta and Facebook at hearnhypnosis.
Check out my website at optimisticxavier.com.au if you feel you'd like to connect with me as a psychic medium, spiritual mentor, or intuitive coach. Include the promo code MATP for 10% discount. You can also find me on Insta, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
We look forward to connecting with you again next time as we attempt to leave no stone unturned.
Bye.
All right, cool. I reckon that should be okay.